Gentlemen, how's it going? It is time to take a look at Pentiment. This is the latest RPG from Obsidian. Now you might say, whoa, wait a minute. Obsidian, that Obsidian? Yes, that Obsidian. I think a lot of people, when they hear about that game studio, they think of these big, massive, successful, popular, whatever, AAA games. Going into this video, I'm going to tell you right now, this is not that. I actually got to see an interview about this game, and the game director behind Pentiment is a guy who's been at Obsidian for a very, very long time. And he basically said that this is like a pipe dream game for him. Didn't know if it would ever get made. But when he pitched the idea to this game to Microsoft, he basically said, this is just a side project that we want to work on. We don't want to ask for a lot of money, but it's just like a game that I want to make. And in the interview, he said that at maximum, the most people that ever worked on this game was 13. So essentially, this is an indie-style game made by a AAA publisher. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump in and see what this is all about. Now, one thing that I'll say from the start here is that this is a dialogue-heavy game, a narrative RPG adventure. So you might ask, does this game have voice acting? And you would say normally it'd be a straight yes or no answer. But in this case, my answer is kind of. And the reason that I say that is because if you want to enable VO for this game, you have to do it through the accessibility options. And right there, I know you're scratching your head saying, what? What are you talking about? I will show you what that means. But does this game have traditional voice acting and all that? No. I wish it did, because I think it would really elevate the game and make it something like really, really cool. But they didn't design it like that. But without further ado, let's just jump in, right? Let's just jump in and see what this is all about. You can actually select a couple different script types. That's cool. Because if you don't do what I'm about ready to show you, there's a lot of reading. So we have our rock eraser here. I'm just gonna start erasing all this stuff. So yeah, there's a little bit of a history lesson for you. They used rocks as erasers. Just get rid of this. There we go. I feel like the game does have a very nice soundtrack. Music's a little bit on the soft side. Oh, I'm covering up the devs. Yeah, definitely a medieval style game. I don't exactly know what the year is. Maybe it'll tell us. But I believe at some point you actually are able to choose a class and stuff like that. There's dialogue options. Because one of the questions that I had was, you're saying that this is an RPG. Well, I mean, are we talking about gearing and stuff like that? And I don't think so. I think it's more about your dialogue options and creating a character. Oh, there we go. It's April 1518. An artist sleeps. An artist's mind.
Player says, and the abbot said to me, Andreas. Option 1 of 3, I don't want you distracting the sisters in the library. Option 2 of 3, I need you to finish this commission by the end of April. Option 3 of 3, keep your conversations with Brother Pierrot to a minimum. Option 2 of 3, I need you to finish this commission by the end of April. Beatrice says, isn't that much earlier than you were expecting? Player says yes. He had told me I had until the Ides of May. Saint Grobian says, asshole. And he's not going to pay you any more, is he? He has no appreciation for the cost of your sweat. Socrates says the yield of labor should not be measured in coin, but in personal satisfaction and self-improvement. Saint Grobian says personal satisfaction doesn't put much food on the table though, does it? Hee hee.
Hee hee.
Prester John says, how did you reply to the abbot, Andreas? Option 1 of 3, I said I would do my best to get it done by the end of April. Socrates says, with discipline and mindfulness, you will persevere.
So I'll go ahead and I'll stop right there for a second. I think the art style is fine. And I think the ambient noises and the music and all that is great. But you can now see what I was saying about the VO. Very strange, right? And Jalen, actually, Jalen in chat just said, this looks like King's Quest from 1990. And take that one step further, I would say it's almost like a text-to-speech game from the 90s. You know?
Beatrice says, if you don't kill yourself striving to meet the abbot's unreasonable expectations. Saint Grobian says what she said. What's the point in burning your candle to the nub for the idiot abbot's sake? Prester John says, despite the abbot's ire, you must endure. Soon you will have finished both the abbot's work as well as your masterpiece. And then you will return to Nuremberg, where marriage and your new life as a master await you.
So you'll run across these items that are highlighted. You can actually click on them. Yeah, it gives you a little zoom out, and it gives you some additional information on what that is.
Beatrice says yes, marriage to someone he has never met. Hardly ideal.
Somebody's asking, can you turn off the narration? Yes, you can.
Socrates says, well, the alternative is becoming a philosopher. Saint Grobian says, oh, Jesus, then you should definitely get married. Is she pretty, at least?
So, as I mentioned, for those who missed my intro, this is built into the game. This is something that you enable through the accessibility options. So if you turn it off, then there's just no VO at all.
Option 1 of 3, that's what my brother said in his letter, but maybe he's just trying to lift my spirits. Prester John says it is growing late. The wheel of time stops for no man, Andreas. I fear you must leave us. Player says, ah, true, your majesty. Prester John says, will you visit us again soon? Option 1 of 3, hopefully, but it's out of my control, your majesty. Option 2 of 3, I don't know, your majesty. Option 3 of 3, well, I can't always dream of this place, your majesty. Prester John says, as are many things. Trust in providence. Grobian, please see Andreas safely home. Saint Grobian says, of course, your majesty. Prester John says, until next time, Andreas. Player says, until next time, your majesty.
So it's definitely a little
Saint
jarring,
Grobian
right?
Says, pay no mind to the other fools, Andreas. Player says, I never do.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that breaks immersion when you're using this. Even when it says, player 1, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I completely agree.
At least I would if they'd stop stepping on my feet. Watch where you're going.
But it's just it's too bad that they didn't want to put the money into real voice acting, because I think if they would have, it would have been actually really cool. And I feel like there's two ways they could have done it. One, they could have just straight up just did a narrator and had the one narrator just read everything. And then two, just have it fully voice acted, you know?
Saint Grovian says hee. They're fools, Andreas. No point in trying to teach them anything. I know old John wants you to endure the abbot's shit, but since I take you home, I get the last word.
Yeah, and JT in chat said this is for people who have issues seeing. You're 100% correct. But I wanted to just show this feature off.
Don't let
in this video.
Rag, boy. Option 1 of 3 I won't. The abbot can't push me around. Saint Grovian says that's what I like to hear. Player says God.
God.
Would you please ST?
Would you please shut up?
I give up. Take me home, Grovian.
This right here is if you are a parent and you're trying to take the kids into town and they won't shut up.
Saint Grovian says hee. As you wish, Andreas.
That's what that is.
Player says good morning, Ursula. Ursula says guuum. And doer. Player says time to get up.
So something I'll show you here real quick. If we go into the accessibility options,
voice assist.
You are able to turn this off, and you can switch between different voices.
Microsoft
voice assist speed.
So if you prefer this, you can also speed it up.
Notification time. Voice assist.
Yep. High contrast, text size.
Contrast, master resolution. Options. Click Journal tab to access quests. Player says the Picatrix, Key of Solomon, the Heptameron. Prior for rank keeps giving me all of these books to read. I really should clean this up. Go to bed.
Hold on.
Journal.
Another day, another few pages for the Abbot, and hopefully a few for myself. I need to get across town and head up to the Abbey so I can start work on my script.
Go to bed. Gerdner House.
Gerdner House. Little child, what are you doing with that stick? It's very dangerous.
Ursula says Andrew PPPBBT.
I mean, that's what I say when I get up in the morning.
Gerdner guest room. Clara. 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 Clara says good morning, Andreas. Did you sleep well? Option 1 of 3, quite well actually. Thank you. Clara says oh, I'm so glad to hear it. Anyway, I know you'll be off to the Abbey, so I packed you some food.
Oh, so nice.
Almonds, cheese, and some of the rye you like from the Albans. Otto wanted me to ask you to join him for dinner at the Abbey.
Who's Otto? That guy.
Eva says Otto stopped by. Clara says yes, around dawn. Here you are, Andreas. Option 1 of 2, that's too kind of you, Clara. Many thanks. Clara says, Master Andreas, if it wouldn't be too much trouble, could I mean, could we? Would it be too much trouble if you paid next month's rent today?
That sounds sketchy.
And if we raised it by 2 groschen?
Whoa.
I hate to ask, but we're behind on our taxes to the Abbey. 2 months behind. Peter's losing his hair over it. Even more than usual, I mean. Option 1 of 4, of course. It's no problem at all. Besides, we wouldn't want Peter to lose any more of his precious hair. Clara says, oh, God bless you, Andreas. And may Saint Luke watch over you today. Speaking of Saint Luke, how is your masterpiece coming along? It's been 2 months now, hasn't it?
Who's St. Luke?
Player says slowly, I'm afraid. Most of my days are spent doing work for the Abbey. It's only during the divine office that Prior Ferenc allows me to work on my masterpiece.
So, just go ahead and stop again here for a second. Yeah, most people will not be doing what I'm doing. I think most people that play this game would just go ahead and read all the dialogue. And yeah, you wouldn't use this feature. But yeah, I feel like I want to point out, I think this game actually could be pretty cool. I mean, it's getting really good reviews. I like a lot of what they're doing with this, but it's just going to be interesting to see, like, moving forward, like, what does the class system look like? What are the dialogue options like? How do picking different dialogue options affect the story and that sort of stuff?
A reasonable restriction, but slow going. The city council doesn't require it to become a master. I'm making it mostly to show clients, and for my own sake. And yes, when I do finish, I will go back to Nuremberg, where I will marry and open a workshop of my own.
And what is this town? Free Imperial City of the Holy Roman Empire.
Clara says, from Nuremberg to a university and now traveling the world as an artist. What a life you have ahead of you, Master Andreas. Player says, yes, I suppose it does feel like I'm starting a new chapter in my life after.
Yeah, I wish it wouldn't say player.
Option 1 of 3, a few missteps. Option 2 of 3, some wandering. Clara says it must be rather frightening, starting all over again. Option 1 of 2, I owe it to my family to make something of my life. Player says they helped me even after I dropped out of university. I can't let them down. Clara says, I'm sure you make your family proud, Andreas. Anyway, I don't know anything about art, but I've seen you sketching such beautiful things in your little book. Your masterpiece must be wonderful. Option 1 of 3 it is. It's my fine option. Clara says hard work will get you all the way. That's what my father used to say, God rest his soul. Now, I have to get back to my own work.
Now, why is some dialogue in red? That I don't know.
Have a good day at the Abbey, Andreas, and we'll see you after Vespers for supper.
What's a Vespers?
Player says not tonight, but thank you. Klaus Drucker invited me over for supper. Clara says of course. Please say hello to the Druckers for us. Player says of course. Until later, Clara. Gertner Farm. Gertner Ursula.
How do I get out of here?
Gertner Guest Room.
Oh, it's this
Gertner
way.
Farm. Clara. Gertner Farm.
Sometimes the game seems like it's losing my mouse cursor.
Gertner House. Peter. Kill Peter.
Shift is toggle walking. Okay.
Kill Peter. Kill Peter. Peter. Gertner House. Big Jurg says morning, Andreas. Player says morning, Big Jurg. How's it going? You working today? Big Jurg says just taking a rest for a bit. Dad's still in the field. He hit a big rock with the plow and it took me Lord knows how long to pull it out.
Been there, done that.
You off to the Abbey? Option 1 of 2 every day but Sunday. Big Yerg says right. Thank God for Sundays. Smells like a storm's coming, no. Player says huh. Just smells like fresh alpine air to me. Big Yerg says you've been traveling too much. Where was it you spent your wander jar before you came to Tassing? Option 1 of 3 Basel Andreas knows some Italian and French and can reference cultural touchstones from Basel and nearby Bern, Zurich, and Freiburg.
So this is where we're picking our character background. Okay, so what's this one?
Option 2 of 3 Flanders Andreas knows some Dutch and French and can reference cultural touchstones from Antwerp, Bruges, and Ghent. Option 3 of 3 Italy Andreas knows Italian, a little Greek, and can reference cultural touchstones from Florence, Venice, and Milan.
I'll go Flanders.
Option 2 of 3 Flanders Andreas knows some Dutch and French. Player says Antwerp, Bruges, and Ghent. All the great art cities of Flanders. Big Yerg says where's that? Player says north and west, down by the sea. Big Yerg says there's your problem. The sea air has confused your sense of smell.
Sounds right.
Spend enough time in these mountains and you'll be able to smell a storm coming. Player says how long will that take? Big Yerg says 10, 15 years.
10 years.
Player says I don't think I have that long. Big Yerg. Big Yerg says what'd you spend all that time in Flanders doing, anyway? Other than art, I mean. Option 1 of 5 Hedonist Andreas seeks out pleasure wherever he goes. He is extremely social and quite experienced in all of the enjoyable vices of the world.
So here's another selection of backgrounds, I guess. Craftsman, bookworm. All right, so we'll go through these.
Option 2 of 5 Craftsman Andreas lives to work and dedicates all of his time to his art. Option 3 of 5 Bookworm Andreas spends all of his non-working free time finding and reading as many books as he possibly can. Option 4 of 5 Rapscallion Andreas has a penchant for getting involved in petty schemes, pranks, minor crimes, and fist fights.
Yeah, this is almost more like a class selection than it is background, but...
Option 5 of 5 Businessman Andreas devotes much of his time to self-promotion, optimizing business expenses, making investments, and balancing his books.
Let's go bookworm.
Option 3 of 5 Bookworm Andreas spends all... Player says reading, mostly. And talking about books. I couldn't get enough of it. Flanders has some of the most incredible manuscript illustrators in Christendom. And the books they produce are treasures, everyone. Big Yerg says I didn't realize that books meant that much to you. I've seen Father Thomas's Bible and a few other books. I haven't had much use for reading, though. Anyway, I have to get going. Peter says Yerg. Let's go.
Let's go.
Big Yerg says Dad's already acting like I'm taking too long even though I did all the work to get that rock out. See you later, Andreas. Player says until later. Big Yerg. Town Commons. Gerdner Farm.
Hey, blacksmith.
Andries says hello, Andreas. Gerdner Farm, Gerdner Farm.
Oh, he doesn't want to talk. Okay.
Veronica says Martin, please. Can you give me a hand here?
These sheep are out of control.
Martin says what do you want? I'm keeping an eye on them. Veronica says that looks a lot like standing there and doing nothing.
Sounds right.
Hetty says Martin. For Christ's sake,
Whoa.
help your cousin.
That's like a big curse word.
Veronica says morning Andreas. Excuse us. One of the fence rails fell and the sheep started hopping it. Option 1 of 3 is there something I can do to help? Veronica says have you ever handled sheep before?
Of course.
Option 1 of 2 well, no. Option 2 of 2. Hetty says oh, look, there's something going on up at the Steinauer's place. Martin says who's that on the horse? Looks rich. Hetty says I don't know, Martin, but Lucky is giving him an earful. Christ, I haven't seen Lucky that worked up since Peter and Clara's wedding when you pulled his pants down. Knocked 2 of my man's teeth out. You don't want to feel the strength behind a stonemason's anger. Martin says do you think he's a noble? He looks really rich. Hetty says God damn it, Martin. Stay out of trouble for once. Martin says what, Aunt Hetty? Veronica says behave yourself. Don't we have enough to deal with right now? Hetty says Andreas, if you wouldn't mind moving your skinny little body up the road, we need to get these sheep under control. Player says of course. See you later. Option 1 of 3 don't work too hard, Martin. Option 3 of 3 help your aunt and your cousin, alright? Martin says eat shit, Andreas.
Jeez.
Hetty, Veronica. Church and Druckers. Church and Druckers. Drucker how? Claus says morning, Andreas.
What?
How's it going?
The heck was that?
Player says morning, Claus. Another day at the Abbey, another few hours to work on my masterpiece. Claus says good to hear. You still coming by for supper tonight? Marie and Bert would love to see you. You really need to see these new woodcuts I have for an Italian edition of Till Ulen Spiegel.
Is this some kind of a board game?
Player says I didn't realize Father Thomas let you print books in Italian. Claus says come on, Andreas, he's not that strict. I know he's just trying to protect people from.
So I guess that dialogue that came up that was like garbled in black, that may have been Italian, and it was covered up because my character doesn't know Italian because I didn't choose that option.
Option 1 of 4 heresy. Option 3 of 4 adventure stories of questionable moral repute. Claus says he doesn't mind those so much, actually. Player says no. Claus says as long as they don't get too carnal. Player says oh.
Oh.
Claus says so, supper tonight, after Vespers, option 1 of 2, of course. Claus says great. I'll tell Marie and Bert you're coming. See you then. Player says see you later. Claus. Thomas says God bless, Master Mailer. I hope your week is going well. Option 1 of 2 thank you, Father. It's going quite well. I'm just on my way up the hill to get to work. Thomas says good, good. Andreas, I don't recall seeing you at Sunday morning Mass. You understand how important it is for your salvation that you receive Holy Communion, don't you? Option 1 of 3 yes. I apologize, Father Thomas. I promise you I'll make it this Sunday. Thomas says you don't have to make a promise to me, but our salvation is contingent on th. Oh, my. What a blessed day to receive such an illustrious visitor. Master Mailer, this is Lorenz, Baron of Rothvogel, a great lord from the countryside near Worms.
What's a Worms? Prosperous imperial free city in the western part of the empire located. Okay.
Lorenz says good to see you, Father Thomas. It is nice to be remembered fondly. Thomas says well, yes, what brings you back to our little town?
So one really interesting thing that when I was watching the interview about this game, you'll notice that when the text comes up, it does like this writing thing. The developer was actually saying that apparently that is very hard to do and very expensive to do. So one of the, I guess, interesting things about this game is, even though it was only worked on by 13 people, and it was an off game, and it's basically, like I said earlier, like a AAA studio working on an indie game, it still has a lot of that AAA polish.
Lawrence says my wife and I were returning from a trip to Venice. We spent a few days in Innsbruck and it was terribly dull. I mean, it has a certain charm common to these Alpine cities, but the place was crawling with nobles for the emperor's diet. Thomas says the emperor. Was he there? Did you see him?
Palpatine, was he there? Did you see him?
Lawrence says oh, briefly, but he was sitting for a portrait at the time. Quite lovely. I didn't want to bother him or the painter. Option 1 of 3. Who was the artist, my lord? Lawrence says I'm sure you know him. An older man from Nuremberg with enough of a reputation to paint the emperor. Player says I'm sorry, my lord. I'm not sure who you mean. Lawrence says have you not heard of Albrecht Dürer? Pity. I thought he was known across the empire. Anyway, my wife wanted to stay a bit longer in Innsbruck and I decided to ride ahead to make a visit to Kiersau. I heard Father Matthias died shortly after my last visit, of course. Thomas says a great loss for the abbey and for us all. Lawrence says indeed. By good fortune, I recently came across a copy of the Historia Tasha he was reading during my last visit. Father Matthias was hoping to find a second copy to corroborate the contents of the first. It contains some fascinating details about the history of this place. I'm afraid they might even cause a bit of a scandal. Thomas says yes. Lawrence says but I must be off. There will be time enough to discuss Tassing's past later. I commissioned a manuscript from the Abbey through Father Gernot and I have come to check on its progress. Thomas says oh. My lord, if you have come to see your manuscript, you should speak with young Master Mailer here. Option 1 of 2. Not quite a true master yet. I still have to marry and be approved by our city council. Thomas says Andreas is a journeyman artist from Nuremberg. For the next few months, he's also helping in the Abbey's scriptorium. Lawrence says a Nuremberger artist working in an Abbey scriptorium. In 1518? Oh, we should talk, Andreas. I must know the story. Option 1 of 3, of course my lord. It would be an honor. Lawrence says wonderful. It's so rare to find someone in the countryside who knows anything about art.
So it definitely seems like from the dialogue options that you could play this almost as like a nice person versus a mean person, and then maybe something in the middle.
Thank you for the introduction, Father Thomas. Come to supper at the Abbey tonight. I'm inviting you to the abbot's table. Thomas says is. Did the abbot invite me? Lawrence says oh, don't worry about it, Father. Just show up after Vespers. What is he going to do, refuse us? Thomas says
He might.
Lawrence says excellent. We will see you then. My Claus, I'm dismounting. Run ahead of us and take the horses to the Abbey's guest house. I'd like to take my time talking with Master Mailer. I'll meet you there. My Claus says at once, my lord. Lawrence says so then, a journeyman from Nuremberg.
That's right. All right, I think I'm going to sort of just give my final thoughts here. And like I said, I think this game has a lot of potential. It's doing a lot of things right. I just wish that it was actually properly voice acted or narrated. What I did here in this video is something that most people are not going to do. You're going to have that accessibility option turned off, and you're basically just going to manually rate it like an interactive novel, essentially. And I think if you treat it like that, it could be pretty good. And yeah, see what you can do with your character and the options that you've chose. And like I said, it's getting pretty good reviews. So it'll be interesting to see if it actually ends up on any like Game of the Year list. And honestly, this might be something that I just kind of finish on my own. I don't think it's that good of a stream game for anybody who's looking to do content, but just kind of a, you know, sit down and just kind of play through it on your own is the kind of game I'm thinking it is. But yeah, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's a first look at Pentiment. Yeah, so for those who are watching on YouTube, thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you guys in the next one.